Well, hello there. We're here in Hong Kong at the Asian Financial Forum, which has been fantastic. I'm joined by Eamonn Fitzpatrick of Fitzpatrick Cohen Advisory. And the fascinating thing about the two of us is we're both from Hong Kong, both went to the same junior school, Kowloon Junior School, a little bit apart, I think, not by much. And we're here basically, with a whole delegation of Australian businesses here at the Asian Financial Forum. Fascinating in the sense that a lot of the businesses that are on the Australian delegation are Hong Kong kids who are part of our migrant community in Australia, who established themselves in Australia and have started some remarkable businesses. And we sort of wanted to have a bit of a chat really about what's happening here in Hong Kong and how it's relevant to Australia. So I'm thrilled to be joined by you, Eamonn. It's a bit of a strange, we're going to do this via a selfie stick, but you'll come on the podcast properly. What are your impressions of Hong Kong in the few days we've been here and the sort of capital market that we're seeing here and the broader Asian context?
Yeah, thanks, Jason. It's great to be here. Great to be here with a fellow Hong Konger, fellow Aussie Hong Konger, someone who knows the sights and the sounds and the smells of this place and the way people move and the pace and the way business just thrives here still. There's been, slow years. 2025 is no different to the last few we've had. There is uncertainty. Anything could happen still a little bit. Geopolitics is what it is, but the really encouraging thing about being here at the Asian Financial Forum is just how many people want to get things done. They want to work together. They want to rely on and look at and share really quality data. We're all following the same sort of trends. And I think when you consider the size and the scale of Asia's economy, where it'll be in the next 10, 15, 20 years, having the Asian perspective on what is happening globally is so important. Couldn't think of a better way to start the year than here in Hong Kong at the Asian Financial Forum. And I'm really looking forward, I think, as the year goes on, to using some of the insights you and I have both been picking up whilst we've been here.
I'm fascinated, I think, by some of the narrative we're hearing from the financial sector here. I mean, we had a wonderful meeting with the governor of the Bank of Finland, who gave us some very interesting perspectives on China. A number of fund managers. I've just finished a few meetings with Singaporean fund managers who are based here. The thematic that seems to be coming out is Hong Kong started itself very much as a trading port, entree port into China, I suppose, when we were growing up here. And Hong Kong investors were very much focused on China. But now, with the opening up of China, Hong Kong is starting to redefine itself a bit and look at its capital stock and investing it in different types of growth economies. So there's a very big focus here on tech startup. You and I had a conversation with John Chan, the financial secretary here, talking about the Greater Bay Area, talking about the whole technology sector and its focus on it. What do you think the opportunities are for Hong Kong businesses in exporting that type of thinking? And what is it that Australian investors should be thinking about in terms of Asia?
Yeah, that's a great question. A great question. So, the beauty, I think, of the Hong Kong-Australia relationship has always been, it's been very dynamic. We've always had such a high sort of two-way traffic of people, of knowledge, of investment, and goods. And I count both of us among that, of course, Jason.
We're some of Hong Kong's best exports.
But what we're seeing here, and I think it's interesting, some of those chats we had yesterday, we're seeing change here. So the special administrative regions change in status. In China, it is now one of a number of big sort of hubs, is forcing change in the way people want to do business and how they want to innovate. So we had a great chat with Arthur yesterday. What about that guy's business?
Fantastic. It was remarkable what he was thinking.
And he's talking about driving just change and behavioral change in the most profound way, using people's devices in the palm of their hands to start encouraging them to do the right thing around zero carbon emissions, which is an incredible thing, and then gamifying it and then commoditizing that in a way that fits straight into anyone's retail system. So, you've got opportunities like that. People are having to put the time and the effort in here and the money, and there is so much to learn and then to take back home, to take back to markets as we have, very, very sophisticated, developed economies like ours, where there's a huge consumer and retail focus. So there's things like that, but there's broader ones too, I think. Just fundamental changes to the way the supply chain works, to how we're getting in it, how we're getting out of it, and the way we're having to make changes because of geopolitics. 2025, anything could happen in the next few months. I think we know that.
Well, I think there's a couple of things there that I wanted to just dive into quickly, which is we talked about this last night, the international perspective on China and on Hong Kong, I think in an Australian perspective, has largely been about the relationship with China, the resetting of the relationship by the Albanese government with the Chinese administration. There was a lot of excitement when the last of the trade restrictions that were placed on Australian products were lifted recently. But I think the impact on Hong Kong of this narrative has been quite significant, particularly around the national security law and the implications of that. And you read in lots of sort of Western press, the flood of expatriates leaving Hong Kong for Singapore and all that. I would say my experience here recently talking to people has been that is overblown. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. I think one of the most regrettable things I've witnessed, and I'm someone like you, I travel right around the region and internationally, and I think really Australia went through a very, very, I think, regrettable period where things were just overblown and it was almost fever pitch. With so much great progress is now underway. The Anthony Albanese, Don Farrell, Penny Wong have done some really, really great work restoring that relationship. Important for us, important for our producers, for our economy, and why not? And it's a very honest relationship. We're saying we'll work together where we can, cooperate where we can, but we don't always have the same shared strategic interests, and that's okay. That's the way of the world. What doesn't help is you have this overblown rhetoric that is just damaging everybody. In the end, we are responsible for our own values and what we do. Let's not waste time judging others, but let's be honest and let's share what we can, work together where we can, and where there's differences, so be it.
What would be your key message to Australian investors in Asia from this conference? Because I think, and let me expand on the question a little bit, I think one of the key things I've noticed at this is the depth of relationships from this city into the broader Asia. Most people associate Hong Kong with China, and with good reason, but there's clearly a much wider ASEAN focus here at this conference. Vietnam, Cambodia, Indonesia, a lot of interest in the sort of capital market here, in the growth of those sectors. What would be your message for Australian investors and Australian stakeholders looking at the ASEAN region from this conference?
Follow the money, follow the money. There's a reason why this is happening, Jason, and that's exactly right. Because these are fast developing economies, size and scale, the likes of Indonesia. ASEAN in itself, it will be the 4th or 5th largest economy in the world in a handful of years. There's an incredible amount of reform and restructure going on into that ASEAN economy across borders. Digitalization, AI, food security, all these huge areas that have massive, massive global impacts are being decided now. We need to be part of that. If you're an Australian business, you need to know. You need to know what's happening here. You need to know what's happening across ASEAN. Hong Kong is one of the ways to get into ASEAN also. The beauty of ASEAN is big and it's expanding and it's dynamic. The beauty of Hong Kong is it is a city that has grown up on being able to connect internationally wherever you might be. And so that for me is the advantage of Hong Kong still.
I think that's a great message. You're obviously going to come on the Jason D'Souza show when we get home. This was just a little vignette into what we will be talking about, but it would be remiss of me while I have you not to ask about federal politics and the election coming up. For investors, for people who watch this show, many of whom are overseas, what do you think the hallmarks of an Australian election are, and what should investors be concerned about, not concerned about at all, and how that might work?
Yeah, so look, I mean, we're really lucky in Australia, I think for a number of reasons. We do, despite some of the coverage in recent years and our ability previously to change leaders, I think we're through all of that. So let's just put that aside. I think we are in a much more stable period. I think the choice is pretty clear. I think what's important is, whether you're government or whether you're opposition, as an investor, you need to make sure you know exactly what the detailed policies are of both parties, of what they're offering, particularly in and around foreign investment, which is a huge one. But also, I think, you want to have a look at some of the other investment rules, and particularly the interaction between, and we don't talk about this as often as we should, the interaction between the federal tier of government and state tiers. And all sorts of things can sometimes come unstuck and go a little awry if you're not careful about that. So I think as an investor, foreign investor going into Australia, that's what I want to be having a look at. And ultimately certainty around plans for energy. Energy investment, we all know, will be the number one issue in terms of how we grow our economy, how we bring on data centers, how we do all those sorts of things. So if you don't have costings, if you don't have detailed plans for energy policy, I think that's a huge risk. So I think those are the sorts of things I would be looking at from an election perspective.
Yeah, wonderful insights. Thanks for coming on the show very quickly on very short notice. I can give you any notice of questions. We're going to go off and enjoy some yum cha because both of us are addicted to local Cantonese cuisine. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.